Hello fellow crafters and welcome back to Max DM Crafting. Today an iconic piece, guys. I'm gonna create the Diablo's dungeon entrance. Stay a while and listen. When we talk about Diablo, we are talking about a video game that made history, forever changing the rules of the RPG game with a particular emphasis on mass battles and exploration of the dungeon in the classic dungeon crawler style. For decades, this game has been followed, or should I say revered, by millions of fans who have contributed over the years to the great success of the saga. Transforming that immense video game experience into an equally immersive experience for a gaming table is not easy and certainly requires a great deal of effort from the point of view of the amount of material that must be built. If on the one hand it could be more than sufficient to adapt any dungeon crawler to the history of Diablo, inserting facts and characters of the fight against the primevals in a normal D&D game, on the other hand it is essential to recreate pieces and settings that in the collective imagination are now uniquely connected to the great Diablo saga. In this series I'm just trying to provide you with a set of scenery elements to turn your regular dungeon crawler into a Diablo dungeon. Obviously, this series of videos is dedicated to all DMs who find the world of static modeling as fascinating as the world of the theater of the mind, just like me. I started with the shifting lengths templates designed by Giuliano Palladini of Fantasy Labyrinth. The one I used is the small one, and like all the templates designed by my friend Giuliano, it allows to obtain columns with two different shapes. I then cut the columns in half to integrate them with my wall. I found myself having to build this piece just over 24 hours before its use. The construction phase was therefore very fast, instinctive, without too many projects. For the arches, I used adhesive tape, just to save time. I could have also used a compass, of course. The most characteristic elements of the staircase are essentially two: the walls with the false niches delimited by columns on both sides of the staircase, and the double structure of the staircase itself, which begins as a rectangular staircase and ends at the bottom with circular steps. Obviously, given the tight deadlines, I made use of all my paraphernalia to make the job quick and precise. As you can see, I got the brick texture in seconds, with the green stuff word textured pin roll, completing the various edges of my pieces thanks to my ballpoint pen. I had in mind the image of that famous entrance staircase, the staircase of the basement of the Tristram Cathedral, and nothing else, but I knew that the piece should have some fundamental and indispensable characteristics for my game table. First point, the staircase must be wide enough to accommodate at least 4 adventurers, so that it can be used as a starting point in the HeroQuest style. Second point, despite being an extremely scenographic piece, its structure must be accessible at 360 degrees in order to be placed in any point of the dungeon and maintain its functionality also as an element of separation from other environments, or also acting as dungeon walls. Third point, its finish, that is the coloring and the addition of details, must be rather neutral in order to be added to different adventures without particular specific references to Diablo, if not the structure itself. The wall must be usable on the game table from both sides, so I also inserted a slice of XPS foam with the brick pattern in the back, and I completed my construction with large covering tiles, both for embellishment and to hide the various layers of the components of my wall. For the circular steps, I used my homemade circle cutter, shamelessly copied from that by Shifty Lens. It is less stable, less reliable, yet with a little experience on the part of the user, it does its job. For every step, I alternated a circular cut with a slice of a circle, so as to obtain a series of 4 concentric circles, which I then assembled, as you can see here. I preferred to build a single wall to be faster and more precise. This is a technique that I use often, but which I do not recommend. In this way, you are forced to cut your piece in half once it is already completed, subjecting it to the risk of an accurate cut or worse. Better not to risk and build 2 equal walls of the desired size. But I was in very hurry, so hey, don't judge me. The whole part of the construction of the internal compartment of the staircase was improvised. I knew that I had to have spaces for positioning the miniatures, and I knew that the total height was given by that of the front walls. The rest is purely a process of trial and error until the final result. At the end of the drying time, I simply cut off the back with all the excess material and put in another brick wall. The final touches were these resin skulls sold by Greenstuff World. I placed 2 on the upper corners of the facade of my piece. I then created 2 small pedestals for the rear areas. These simple parallelepiped-shaped pieces have the purpose of supporting my skulls, but above all, they will reinforce the 90-degree angles of the 2 side portions of the staircase. The next steps are always the same. First, I covered the whole piece with the usual mix of acrylic black paint, Mod Podge and water. Then I colored everything with the semi-dry technique with a neutral gray, and then I finished it all with a layer of warm gray with a dry brush. The theater of the mind is fundamental for EDM, but sometimes it is really satisfying to put a piece like this on the table. The effect on players is extremely evocative and leaves no doubt. They are pushing their steps closer and closer to the Lord of Terror. Okay guys, this is it for today. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you like this video, please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe this channel. If you like my video, if you think that my work is somehow inspirational, remember to support me through Patreon. You will get a lot of exclusive content, okay? Check it out. Till next time.
The sanctity of this place has been fouled.